Good morning. How is everybody today? Everybody doing good? All right. Well, welcome back to Breakfast with Pop Pop. I actually already had breakfast this morning because I wasn't going to let my cornbread and milk get soggy. So I went ahead and ate. I was actually running a little bit early this morning. Oh, by the way, I have no idea what band this is on my hat. It's Heather's old hat, but Heather does not hat anymore because she has a job. So I don't know what band this is, but my head was cold. So any breakfast is a good breakfast, right? I'm gonna wait for a few more people to get in here before I start things out. How was everybody's weekend? Ah, in the UK it's lunchtime. What are you having for lunch? What's everybody having for breakfast? What are you having for lunch or dinner, depending on where you are in the world? All right, we got about 16 people in here. So we've been discussing queer art on the TikToks. We've been discussing queer art there. Um, Give Pop Pop 1 second. All right. We've been discussing queer art, and I had a bit of a realization this morning because we were talking about like where do we go from here in terms of queer art, because we seem to have these like competing tensions when it comes to queer art. And I had a realization this morning about what I think the issue is, because there's obviously an issue when it comes to our art, when it comes to our culture. Where do we go from here? And what I realized is we've been kind of looking at our art and what we create and our culture on the spectrum of um, queer joy and queer pain, right? We want to create art that expresses queer joy and uh, queer sadness, uh, queer pain. And we don't like it when other people try to express our pain for us because they generally do a really bad job. Um, and I think that that's the inappropriate spectrum to be looking at, because I don't think that is really what queer art, the root of queer art is. I think it's part of it, right? But I don't think that's really what the root of queer art is. I think what the root of queer art is and always has been was about queer success and queer denial. What does our success look like, and what success has been denied to us? And I think part of the reason that happened is because we had like the ballroom scene back in like the 80s and 90s, right? And before that, we had like very few rights at all. Like nothing. We were very underground. Um, but around the 80s, around the 90s, um, 70s, 80s, 90s, the sort of like AIDS epidemic period, um, we started gaining more rights and more traction in society. And I think that during that time, you know, we had ballroom, which was about like we it was about like realness. Like, okay, we could have this if we weren't denied it by society. These are the things we could have. We could be, you know, the kings and queens and princesses. We could be the movie stars and the actresses. We could be the executives. You know, we could do all of that. And because it was the 80s and 90s, that was a time where success for Americans there was like a very clear picture of what that looked like. You had, you know, the executives, you had Wall Street, you had Hollywood. There was a vision of what success looked like in America. Well, then the economy crashed. And the people who were successful were the ones doing it. So the view of success in society completely changed. Completely changed. And we never reevaluated what queer success looks like. Um, we never reevaluated what our dream should be. So what we did was we just fell back inside of ourselves and we looked at what we had been denied, which was for queer people forever has largely been a childhood. Um, and we just stayed there. We just stayed there and we never left. Um, and it's time to move forward. It's time to be grown-ups. It's time to reevaluate our relationship with success and denial and create art that exhibits that. Because right now, a lot of our art is based around this like trying to recapture something that was lost, trying to recapture our our childhood, our smallness, our past. And when we are constantly trying to recapture the past, we can't move forward. We can't create a new vision of what it means to be queer and successful. And I think we need to like really start looking at, so what do you think to you guys? What is queer success? What is queer like, because it's not just queer success. As Americans, I feel like, especially my generation, especially millennials, we never reevaluated that. We looked inside of ourselves. We learned how to evaluate our own actions, but we never created an actual vision for the future, for what that would look like, for how to get there. Um, and our rage is not being aimed in any particular direction. And that the rage not in aimed in any particular direction is very common amongst Gen Z. Um, and I think that's why all of our art is falling flat, because we're just trying to recapture something that is lost, and we're not actually looking at it as loss. Um, we aren't coming to terms with the sadness and the pain that like a lot of us just had our childhoods gone. Like they just they're gone. We can't get that back. So we can sit there and we can take care of that inner child, but we can't stay there. We have to move forward. Success doesn't have a clear image anymore. You're right, Vampire Winters. In America, we had the American dream, you know, and that is gone. It's gone, and we're all jaded and disillusioned with it. So now we have to create a vision for the future, a vision of hope, a vision of queer success and what that looks like. Um, and you know, I think a lot of us watch the Super Bowl halftime show, and the Black community has always been wonderful at capturing um, what it means to be Black and successful, what it means to be, um, and capturing that denial um, of what they have been owed in society and the pain that comes with that, capturing what has been taken from them. Um, and I don't think we have ever done that. Um, Especially as white queer people, we've never come to terms with our loss, our grief, um, and learn to move past that and create a vision of success. Yeah, and that's the thing. We're in defense. We shouldn't be in defense. We should absolutely be in offense. Um, I don't think it is helpful for us to only play defense. Um, I think that we also have to build and create in spite of being in defensive mode. Um, because if not, we aren't going to accomplish anything. We're just going to keep beating back the fascists instead of moving forward onto them. That's the thing, though. Overlord Magatha, you see success as just keeping our rights we're losing right now. We got to do more than that. We have to have a dream for the future, what it looks like. That is kind of where a lot of us are all at right now. We're playing defense. We're just trying to keep what we have. We're trying to preserve what we have. We can't just do that. We have to shoot further than that. We have to look at what we want the world to be, because that's what art is. It is when you know, black trans women were in the ballrooms in the 1980s and 1990s. They weren't just like, I sure would like to have a little apartment somewhere. That would be great. I mean, they were in reality. They were looking at things realistically, but ballroom was about being fantastic. It was about moving beyond what is expected of us in society, and we haven't done that. We haven't created a vision of where we're headed. And look where queer people got by having a vision of where we are headed. Now, that was not the world we ended up having, but it is a vision of where we are headed. And we need to create that through our art, through our writing and our music. Um, we need to, address the loss and the pain, but we and the anger, definitely. Um, but we also need to create what we want the world to be now that it's different. We can't go back to the vision of success that our queer ancestors had, because it's a different world. Yeah, only playing defense didn't help the Chiefs Sunday, that's for sure. That's the thing that's missing too, Haremont. It's been hard because I've worked on my dream, but I only know how to do it for myself and people close to me. It seems almost impossible for me to dream of good things more broadly than that. And that's the thing. We have to. We have to. What is the future you want? For not just you, for everyone. What does it look like? And create that. Create art that simulates that in some way. Um, I think that's why it's been feeling so empty lately. Queer art has felt empty. Um, because we aren't actually looking at the the future, and we aren't looking at the loss. And when we do look at the loss, we have no hope for the future. We have no vision for the future. So we just get sad and lay down and don't do anything, because we have nothing to look forward to. We have no places that we like. I'm really shocked that I haven't seen more art about, like, the trans bathroom bills, for example. That is the perfect opportunity to make some really visceral art because you're dealing with toilets. You're dealing with something that human beings need, require. You're dealing with like human bodies and human excrement. And I'm really surprised that's a direction no one has decided to go in. Another thing that is being somewhat explored by some artists and something that I've been exploring is queer spirituality, a queer relationship with God, a queer relationship with the church, and these places that we've been denied. We have been denied a relationship with God, something that is necessary. Well, not necessary, but every human being is entitled to a relationship with the divine in some way, the universe, the power that be. You know what I mean? Um, and we are we have that connection by the very nature of being human, and yet we have been denied it. Um, and I think that's a really interesting avenue to explore. Um, but there are so many opportunities to create something that is meaningful and visceral, and it feels like we are afraid of letting our art piss off conservatives or even liberals who are kind of backtracking right now, a lot of them. We are afraid of upsetting them, of making them create new talking points about us. They're going to do that no matter what. They're going to do it no matter what. They don't care. No matter what we do, they're going to think we're degenerates. That's just the long and short of it. Um, so we might as well make something meaningful. I think it can just be hard right now too because this is deeply overwhelming. It feels hard to gauge the threat level, so it's even harder to know where the risk is. And that is true. But the thing is, we have to create a vision of the future where the risk does not exist. That's where the barriers are gone. We have to envision a future where we are limitless. Um, and I think that's where it starts. I think we really need to look at our relationship with success and what success looks like because it's not going to be like the same vision of success that they had in the 80s and the 90s during the Wall Street era, during this kind of age of like American prosperity. It's going to be different now. Somebody somewhere has to dream bigger than themselves for those of us who can only dream so big. That is true, but I want us to all try. I want us to try. All of us to have this vision, this hope for the future, this measure of success that is bigger than we will ever achieve. Um, we need a vision that is so big we can pass it on to the next generations. Uh, Rye Howard says, I want success outside of capitalism too, but I don't know what that would look like. I mean, here's the thing. Like, think about like Star Trek. Star Trek is a vision of the future outside of capitalism. Sci-fi. We have not been uh doing a lot of creating new sci-fi, hopeful sci-fi. A lot of our sci-fi is very dystopian because we look at that as the future that is inevitable. And we can't just have an inevitable future that is terrible. That's not how we move things forward. That's not how we hold on. It's how we can cope. But right now we need to do more than cope. we're scared to dream because of how much we've lost. That is true. But we have to do it anyway. We have to. Like, there is no other option. The only other option is laying down. And we're not going to lay down. Yeah, I've been battling with the fear of drawing negative attention because I have this fear of being someone's only image of trans people because it's happened. But fuck it, queer art now and forever. That's the thing, is we have to stop giving a shit. We cannot base our lives around what they may or may not do. They're demons. Okay? Like, they're gonna do what they do no matter what we do. They're gonna hate us no matter what we do. And right now, letting them take over like this, control what we do, it's leaving this like weird, bizarre counterculture vacuum. All right, here's the baby. You guys get to see the baby. She's been mean this morning, so I'm probably not going to keep her up here for very long. All right. Mwah. Yeah. Unfortunately, having a stable enough income to always pay bills and groceries does seem like dreaming big. Okay, I need you guys to understand something. Every one of you, if you have not already, go watch Pose and go watch Paris is Burning. Both of you, like all of you, both of those shows. Well, it's a show and a documentary. Go watch those because those people had nothing. They had nothing. They were at the bottom of society. They had very few rights. They were constantly being arrested. They had fucking nothing, and they still managed to dream. The fact that we have not done that, the fact that we keep saying, well, I don't know, it just shows our lack of imagination. And that is another reason our art is suffering. It's because of our lack of imagination. The people who came before us had less than us. They just did. It used to be worse. And if they were able to create a vision of the future, then damn it, so can we. All right, we're going to kind of pivot here. It's kind of on the same topic, but we're going to discuss this, and y'all are going to get mad. Y'all are going to get mad. You're going to get mad at me, and I'm going to have to deal with y'all. Hold on. All right. We got to talk about the learned helplessness. We have to. We have got to address this. It's very common in my generation. It's very common in Gen Z. We cannot act helpless anymore. If we keep doing that, nothing good is going to happen. Because we are the grown-ups now. We have to take our power back. We have to. There's no other option. The older generations are so old. And they're not giving up the keys. That's for damn sure. But we are not taking our power back. We are not taking our power back. The right wing is. The right wing in Gen Z is absolutely taking their power back. But we're not doing it. Not on the left. And because we don't want to fail. We're afraid to fail. The right wing's not afraid to fail. They're gonna just move forward at full speed. They don't care. And they have been. Look at all the insane shit they've done. Like we have not taken back our power. We have sat here and gone, "Oh well, I'm small and helpless and incapable and Pearl, what are you doing? Pearl, come on. Come on. No. Down there crinkling a bag. Yes, there's no adulty or adult coming to help us. There's just not. There is no grown-up coming to save us. We are the grown-ups. We have to save us. That's it. That's the long and short of it. And that means not being afraid of power. I am tired of being small and helpless. Exactly. Exactly. We have got to stop being small and helpless. And I think that's the issue that I've been having with the like little frog art, because I was trying to put my finger on it. I'm like, why does this piss me off so bad? Like, it shouldn't, right? Like, I feel like I'm having an unreasonable reaction to the tiny frogs, okay, and the ukuleles. But every time I see it, it just makes me want to fucking scream. And I think that's why. I think we are so afraid of power. And we just think if we can make ourselves small enough, if we can make ourselves helpless enough, if we just stay here, maybe they'll go away. But that's not going to happen. It's not. The only way we move forward is to build power in some way, shape, or form. Okay? And I know we're going to sit and bitch and moan at each other and argue about how to do it. But the thing is, you just need to do it. You just need to do it. You just need to organize your community. You need to run for office. If you're thinking about it, run for fucking office. It doesn't matter if you're running third party. It doesn't matter if you're running Dem. Run for fucking office. It is something I have absolutely contemplated. But then I realized I think I do better in the position I'm in, and that I could do better work in the position I'm in. I have seriously considered running for like city council. But then I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't have the opportunity to influence as many people as I do with this job. And I think I'm kind of needed as people's preacher. I think that's the leadership role that I'm more meant for. But some of y'all, you're gonna have to take on leadership roles. You have to. You're the grown up. Hold on, I need to grab my water. I don't think it's wrong to expect the people who have a lot of power to take action. No, it's not wrong to want that. I do think it's unwise to expect it. I think it's unwise to expect it because the people who have a lot of power aren't going to take action because they want to hold on to that power. It's class interest. The Dems are always going to work in their class interest, 100% of the time. Honestly, it sounds like unresolved childhood trauma for a lot of us where being small and quiet was beneficial. Yeah. And you need to work through that. You have to. You have to learn to work through that. I think that, you know, a lot of us came to terms with it, but we never said to ourselves, okay, Now we have to come out the other side. We just sort of we're like, okay, I have childhood trauma, and you know, I can cope with it to get through the day, but it never went beyond that. And I think that we really do, and I hate to sound like that, say this because it makes me feel like a fucking boomer when I say it. A lot of us need to realize that childhood trauma has been around forever, and we do, in some ways, have to suck it up. We do. Um, we can't just sit here and use it as an excuse to never do anything for the rest of our lives. Yeah, I think, I've been really harsh on the little frog art, right? I've been really harsh on the little frog art, and I'm sorry, but the little frog art is really pervasive, and I have noticed that a lot of what we create is very like head pat. It's okay to not get out of bed. It's okay. It's okay to not get out of bed. You can bed rot for a day. But then that's the thing, is that we're looking at the internet, and every day we're getting a new post that's saying it's okay to bed rot for a day. It's okay to bed rot for a day. And then one day becomes 2 days, and then 2 days becomes three. And the next thing you know, you've been bed rotting for 3.5 weeks, and you haven't gone outside because you've always been had somebody there to tell you that it's okay if you don't get out of bed today. And that's not helping us. The people who have a lot of power won't help us unless they're scared of us or they have an incentive. Exactly. It's true. They won't help us unless we are fucking their lives up too much, or we're hurting their bottom line. But what I don't like when I show up as an adult is when the rest of the grown-ups around me who are about the same age shove all the responsibilities on me. Um, that is true, and that is not fair, right? That is not fair, but you got a deal. Like, I'm sorry, you do. Um, that is another thing that I think we need to address, is we need to learn how to cope with the fact that things are unfair, and we need to move forward anyway. Now, that doesn't mean we have to accept it. We don't have to accept that things are unfair. We should work to change them. But we do have to acknowledge that they are and keep working anyway. We can't just sit here and be like, well, that's not fair, so I'm not going to do it. Okay, then it's not going to get done. Like, I noticed this with the it's not my job to educate you stuff. Yeah, is it exhausting to educate people when you are just a marginalized person trying to live your life? Yeah, absolutely. Fucking is. 100% of the time. Um, but just because it's not fair that you have to do that doesn't mean it doesn't need done. And that sucks. But it's just kind of the lot in life we've been dealt. And until things change, it does have to be us who does it. I feel like a lot of people only ever recognize that they have issues and that they don't ever try to get over it. Or if they did, they tried CBT, which isn't effective for most trauma. Yeah. Yep. Like, it is about like learning to cope. And that's where a lot of people stopped, was okay, I have coping mechanisms now. I can get through my day, but that doesn't improve you. You have to work beyond that. Um and I think that a lot of people just stop at, okay, well, I can function. I'm going to talk to my therapist about moving me more sustainably beyond the freeze response. Yes, you should. You absolutely should. Absolutely should. You got to get past the freeze. Not just flailing arms or posting fire at politicals for not doing this or that. Where's the grassroots? Where's the mutual aid? Where's the community? Exactly. Exactly. Because that's something our queer ancestors also had. We had community. And another thing we are missing that I think we need to bring back is competition. We need competition. And here's why we need competition. Because we don't have competition anymore and we're eating each other alive. We stopped having little sports, little things we do, where we can kind of get out that anger and frustration. That was a lot of ballroom too, and like voguing and stuff like that. It was this opportunity to engage in competition, where at the end of it, yeah, you may feel slighted. There may be a bit of drama, but you're not tearing yourselves apart. Our competition in our community has become political competition, being the most righteous, being being the best queer, being the best person, the least cancelable. And that is not healthy. That is not healthy. That's the only form of competition we have. We've got to set something up. We aren't doing ballroom anymore. We aren't doing pageants. We aren't doing like dancing competitions and stuff like that. We need to have some sort of games and shit we're playing where we're all kind of doing it. We need a new queer competition that we can be involved in. And like stuff like drag has been so commodified and commercialized at this point, it's lost its roots. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't do drag. Absolutely we should do drag, but we do need competition. We do, because we got to get that energy out somewhere. If you make competition being the most moral, losing is ostracization and not improvement. Exactly. Exactly. All right, I have to go pee real quick. I will be right back. I could never do dancing, but I think it would be cool to do queer trivia, which would also encourage people to learn their queer history. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great idea. That's the thing. Create a little competition. And create a, like, the great thing about ballroom is that, like, what people did in ballroom was they created their own pathway to success. It was their own world where they had their own pathway to success. And I think it would be interesting to see what we can come up with on that front, when we address a new vision of success. Functional community support in groups that are welcoming to everyone does not seem to exist like it used to, especially in this area. Most people here have their groups and never leave them. Yep, that's another problem, is that there is no shared meeting space. What's up?
May I get water?
Yes, you may get a water.
It's been a while since the stream started.
What did we say before stream started, though?
Wait a while.
It was, we said, get your water now, because I'm going to be streaming.
But I wasn't thirsty then.
I know, but we told you to get your water then. It's okay. Get your water. I'm not going to deny you water, my child.
Okay, thank you.
You're a silly thing. I love you.
Thank you. Love you too.
Oh, but back to what we were talking about. People not leaving their groups. Yeah, that is a huge problem. We have our little cliques, and they never leave their little cliques. But that's the thing, is that the other great thing about ballroom is that, yeah, you had your little cliques, you had your houses, right? And those were the people, those were your family. Those were the people you took care of and who took care of you. But then when you went to ballroom, you were competing against all of the other little cliques. You were competing against the people from these other scenes, these other houses. But they all came together in that one place. And we don't have that anymore. I feel like a lot of people don't realize how much community was lost as people have stopped going to church. Yes, that is another thing. We need to, that's why I think it's very interesting as queer people in our art to explore spirituality again, and religion, and what it means to have those kinds of community spaces, what it means to have a religious space, because I would argue that ballroom was a religious space. It was a religious space for queer people. I think when people talk about making community, one thing that's often missed is that it has to be a place they want to be. Yes, exactly. You have to want to be there. One of our best community spaces here in Huntington has been West Edge. Now, they don't have the money, and the people who run it don't have the time to do a lot of events, which kind of sucks, because that is a place where, like, all of the little communities kind of come together. Like, you have, like, the kind of, like, DIY art queers that go there. You have, like, my group, which is more like outreach and community oriented. You have, like, the people who go play D&D at the library. You have the more like corporate queers kind of show up there. The more like assimilationist queers. Everybody comes to West Edge, and it's a really incredible space that's been carved out there, where we kind of all just go there every once in a while, especially after shit hits the fan. Shit hits the fan, like after the inauguration. After shit hit the fan, Sasa threw together this event, and all we did was sit around and make little necklaces. But we were all there, all of us. Like every queer, every queer was there. We got to get better at actually doing the work of confrontation and resolving conflict. Yes, and I think part of what kind of ruined that for us is the internet. I'm not going to lie. I really do. I think the ability to simply block people and never interact with them again is an issue. Now, on the internet, that's unavoidable, though, because you're dealing with 500 fucking people, some of which are genuinely fucking dangerous. Like, you're constantly dealing with the world, all of them, all at once. So it's unavoidable to have to block people. But I think that we took that into real life, where we can just go, okay, well, I just simply will not speak to you again. And so then we ended up really lonely and isolated, and never learned to work through minor conflict. Now, major conflict, obviously, something has to be done. Like, we can't just have, wild ass people wilding out in our spaces. But something else I've noticed just from like doing like community work is that the people who online are very puritanical, who are very unwilling to work with others, who want to be like the most moral gays, right? In real life, they don't get along well in queer spaces. Like, they are incredibly difficult to work with, and they just kind of stop being invited to things because it's antisocial behavior. And it is an antisocial behavior that is kind of not just tolerated online, but you kind of get a certain amount of clout from it in certain places. So it is rewarded. In real life, Pearl, you're shaking the table. Here, there's the other baby. You get to see the other baby. In real life, that behavior is not rewarded. And I think that has confused a lot of like younger people, because they have grown up in these online spaces where that kind of behavior is rewarded. And in real life, it is not. It is not, because it does not create stable communities. It tears people apart. And people don't like that shit. They don't like the drama of it. We had a group of about 4 or 5 people in our community who were like that. And they were a polycule. And they acted a fool. They acted a fool constantly, consistently, over and over and over again. And it made them constantly fight amongst themselves and constantly start shit with other people. And it got to the point where we couldn't handle them anymore. And they just stopped being invited to things, and they stopped showing up for things because people like kind of didn't want to be around them.
I don't want to interrupt your live stream, but you forgot to introduce Mouser.
Yeah, Meowser's going in and out though.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep, see, she's out now. I've just been introducing the cats as they come over here, and Meowser hasn't come over here. So.
Okay.
Maybe we should use our library in public spaces more too. Yes, use the library. Use the library. Use the library. You can build so much out of the library or just your house. If you don't still live with your parents, like even if your apartment is this fucking big, That's how we started movie nights, was when in my apartment that was this fucking big. We just all crammed our asses in there. And we started out there because somebody's got to take the step. Somebody's got to offer the space, or you can use the public spaces that we have. The libraries will be very grateful, I assure you. We also desperately need cross-generation events. Being in my 30s, there's a huge divide there where generations don't talk to each other. Yes. Yep. We need not just one type of space, lots of different types of spaces, but we also need one space that all of those different places can come to every once in a while, right? We need the big space, right? The big place that we all go to, and we need all the little places where people can kind of handle their own niche interests, right? Like, there's the Stonewall. I used to go to the Stonewall, but I can't drink anymore. I'm in recovery. And so I can't go to the Stonewall anymore. So, but there is the Stonewall people, and they still get to enjoy those events. We need events that, and spaces that cater more to families. The library would be a great place to do like queer family events. We also need the dingy, dirty kinksters. We do. We do. We need those people because they are part of the culture. And we can't just hide them away. We're not going to hide them away. We're not going to be embarrassed of that shit. It's part of us. That polycule, you love the polycule lore. That polycule was a thorn in me and Heather's side for like, God, Heather, how long was it? Like 2 fucking years? They were constantly starting shit. And now it seems as if perhaps, mayhaps, they have finally skittered away into the underground until they can heal enough to come back into the space. We never kicked them out. That never happened. It was just sort of a natural consequences of your actions kind of thing. I hate these generational wars. We can learn from each other. Yes, exactly. Exactly. And I think that, like, we need to listen when another generation is calling us out on our shit. That's the thing. That's where the boomers went wrong, is that they will not admit that there's a problem. And Gen Z, you do have the, you are very stubborn. Make sure you don't fall into that trap. Okay? Y'all are very smart and very resourceful. Don't fall into that trap where you're never growing because you are too stubborn to admit you've done anything wrong. I yearn for multi-generational space, but then I worry I'll run into my lesbian turf mother. She was part of the folks who thought they were morally superior. Why can't she deal with my sober quinky bum? Okay, so in real life multi-generational spaces, like I was saying, people like that, they don't last long. If you act foolish in multi-generational spaces, you don't last long. And it's not because you'll be kicked out. It's because you will start to feel bad. You will have to deal with the fact that nobody really wants to talk to you or be around you. That nobody comes up to you, that you're kind of always left in the corner. And that's the thing. Like they don't last long. They end up leaving. And then they create their own little space full of people like that. And that's all they have. And they make each other miserable. That's how it works. I'm telling you. I noticed that a lot of events are very one generation centric, especially with people who have kids, them getting left out of planning because people don't plan for kids or even younger adults. Yes, the we do have to remember something, guys. Um this is kind of the first era in a while, and we're very lucky to have this, where we are allowed to be open and where multiple generations of us are still alive. Um this is a very interesting period in history, and it's kind of unprecedented, and we have to figure it out on our own. Um, because we haven't had this before. We haven't had multiple generations of queer people that are interacting with each other and looking at how the culture used to be, how the culture has changed, and learning from one another. And so, and we also have a group of people who are incredibly puritanical. And older gays, like the real old gays, aren't going to want to be around that shit. They aren't. It's annoying. And then the older gays annoy the younger gays because they refuse to fucking change. They don't, they go, oh, you know, well, we used to be this, that, or the other. We used to have grit. And they or like they don't understand the new ways queer people are seeing themselves, because like a lot of older like trans people and stuff, if you talk to them, they'll still use certain terminology that younger people no longer use. For example, a lot of them will refer to themselves as cross dressers. Or drag queens when they are trans people living that full time. Um, like you will run into that a lot more with older generations because they did not have the language and terminology that we have today. And then that causes upset amongst the younger people who don't like hearing those words. Um, and it just becomes a fucking mess. And we've never learned how to genuinely interact with one another and work through those differences. I want more opportunities to learn from elders in activism and queer spaces. Then we need to have queer spaces, like genuinely. And it needs to, um, there is going to have to be some crossover. There is. Like, we have to learn how to create a place that is all ages, but people actually want to be in. And like I said, West Edge has done an amazing job of that, because the older queer folks, a lot of them like to show up for the art. And West Edge is an art studio. It's an art space. And the older gays, they love that shit. They love it. Um, the older gays don't just want to be at the bars either. They will spend, a lot of them will spend more time in the bars, but they want to show up for art. And so having some sort of art studio, some sort of art space where you can have both younger people engaging with queer art and older people engaging with queer art is good. We also do have to understand that queer art is raunchy a lot of the time. And to some extent, Gen Z is y'all are gonna have to get over your prudishness. You are a little bit prudish, and I think sometimes dicks in unexpected places makes you guys really uncomfortable, and you are gonna have to get over that. I think it is also empowering to watch old queer media to understand elder queer individuals. Okay, y'all go either open your notes app or go get a piece of paper. Pop Pop's going to give you some stuff to watch, okay? Some stuff that's going to teach you about your culture. All right? You need to watch Pose. Okay, that's a good one for you. It's very time consuming though. If you don't have a lot of time, there's 2 movies that I highly recommend. All right. Um, Paris is Burning. Every single fucking queer person needs to watch Paris is Burning. Every single one. Required. Required. And then Glenn or Glenda. You need to watch Glenn or Glenda too. You need to see queer art made by a trans art made by a trans person in the 1950s. You need to see that. You need to see how trans people used to see themselves, and look at who they used to be and how things have changed, how they've grown. I wonder why the kids are so puritanical now, because we failed them. We failed them. That's why they're so puritanical now. We gave them no blueprint for how to be an adult. So I think they just learned that if the world was going to change, then they needed to construct a dogma and stick to it. And that's not great. We didn't teach them how to have like a moral compass, so they just created a dogma. Because a lot of them grew up evangelical. We have a very evangelical society, even if they didn't grow up even evangelical. So they just learned how to create dogmas. Glenn or Glenda. Glen or Glenda. Glenda. Yep, How to Survive a Plague. That's another good one. I think a lot of queer people have only seen modern queer media. And they know a lot more people are knowing about people like Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera. But I think you need to see them. Um, you need to see them talk. You need to see them in motion. You need to see how their lives turned out. And there was another movie that I can't remember. Is it The Death of Marsha P. Johnson? It's a documentary. It's about the death of Marsha P. Johnson and what kind of happened to that crew around that time. You need to see how things used to be for us. You need to see, and you need to see the tenacity and the hope that these people had. You need to see it. And you need to learn how to recreate something for this era. You can't just look at a picture of Marsha and imagine her throwing the brick, okay? You need to see her in motion. You need to see how queer people used to speak to each other, how they used to interact with each other. Because we're not doing ourselves any favors right now. We're not. We got to come together. We got to learn how to deal with each other. I also think we who are parents focused on setting boundaries and keeping our kids safe in ways we weren't, but fair to update those rules as the kids got older so they're adults with kid norms. Yes. Yep. I think we got to give the kids a little bit more freedom. We have to remember that this is the safest this country's ever been. But I think what we're actually afraid of in a lot of ways is other people seeing us as bad parents because we're also under constant surveillance. So I think that we are almost afraid to give our kids the freedom to explore. because we're afraid that people will see that exploration and either ruin our lives or our kids' lives. That our kids will make a mistake that ends up on the internet and that will haunt them forever. And so I think we're afraid to like let them go. They gotta go though. They gotta move out into the world and create and become the people they're meant to be. All right, though, we are going to have to wrap things up. As a reminder, Miles needs a haircut. So if you would like to donate to our clergy fund, we are going to be um, getting Miles a haircut. And I also don't know how much I'm going to get paid because apparently American views aren't being counted in the TikTok Creator Fund. I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea what's going on or how much I'm going to get paid this month. And I'm scared. I am scared because we have bills. So if you would like to help us out with that, and grocery prices are going up too, there is a link tree. It's somewhere down here in this area. I don't know. Heather, do you have access to the link tree? Can you post it in the chat? And then our outreach fund as well. We do have a wish list up. However, it is through my registry because we are trying to get around all the boycotts, which there are a lot of them. By the way, guys, I do need y'all to understand something, okay? The boycotts, I understand where you're coming from. There's a lot, you're trying to learn from the past. And in the past, a lot of people were like, don't shop where you won't be hired. That was, we have to remember, before there were 4 companies. There didn't used to be 4 companies. If you were boycotting a place, it was usually a smaller business than what we have today, at least. It's not boycotting megacorps is far more difficult, and if you're going to do that, then some of y'all are going to have to either go outside or inside the store and make a stink like the Republicans did about Bud Light. That's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to make a fool of yourself in public. That's the only way to get it done. But anyway, we're trying to get around those boycotts. So there is a My Registry for donation supplies, but you will have to put in the address of our studio when it's sent, which that should be on the My Registry. But I'm trying to think of what else. All right, I'm gonna read donos. All right. All right. Active. All right. Come on. You can do it. I believe in you, little computer. All right. All right. I would like to give a special thank you to Jessica Bednarak, Ariana, Emma Price, Allison Hill, Lauren O'Connor, Mao, Nathan, Morgan Westerin, Eleanor Buxbaum, Void Beans, Jay Winia, Morgan May, Taylor Condra, River Johnson, Angelini Pellegrini, Faith Benamy, Kristen McSorley, Jacqueline Gordon, Devin Watson, Val Smith, Post-Punk Pastor, Pauline Gibson, and John Borg. Thank you guys so much for your contributions. And remember, if you become a member of our Patreon, you will be able to have access to our interfaith discussion groups, which happen on every other Sunday evening. So a Zoom link gets put in the Patreon, and all patrons of any paid tier are welcome to join that. All right. Well, I shall see you all later. And as always, drink a water, eat a food, be kind to yourself, to your neighbor, and to the earth. Thank you guys so much for everything you do. I hope you have a wonderful day, and God bless.